Good afternoon, everyone. Any questions you'd like to ask from the previous class or previous lectures? So in the previous class, I was talking about that during reign of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, how series of rebellion happened in different part of the country, and two serious rebellions, one in Deccan, another in South, that led to emergence of two kingdoms. One is called Vijayanagar kingdom, another is called Bahmani kingdom. So we had started our discussion about Vijayanagar kingdom. I told you that Vijayanagar rulers, the first ruler or the first dynasty, Sangam dynasty, and the first ruler was Harihar. And Harihar and Buka, they were two brothers who had set up their own independent kingdom with Vijayanagar as the capital. जो modern Vijayanagar capital है, that is a city called Hampi in Karnataka. And even looking at the ruins of Hampi, you can actually imagine the glory Vijayanagar at one point of time was. So Harihar and Buka, as I told you in the previous classes, that first Malik Kafur attack that made Deccan kingdoms very weak, Deccan and southern kingdoms. And that was used by Muhammad bin Tughlaq, who at one point of time was ruling almost of entire of India, with few exceptions. But at the same time, जो Hoysalas हैं, Kakatiyas हैं, Madurai's kingdom, जो Pandyas हैं, they have completely, in Madurai in fact you have a sultanate, and Yadavas, they have also completely, they have also disappeared from the political map. So there is a political vacuum, there is a power vacuum here, and that power vacuum was used by Harihar and Buka. They set up a very small principality. Originally it was frankly a very small principality near Tungabhadra river behind a hill, and that was basically chosen deliberately behind a hill because they could prepare if there is any type of Turkish invasion to their kingdom. And Tungabhadra Doab, the entire region is also very prosperous. So there was a reason why Vijayanagar was chosen as a capital. And because there is no as such central authority, and when Firoz Shah Tughlaq became ruler, he decided that he cannot rule over Deccan and South from Delhi. So he left, he did not do anything for those rebellions. So it was up to this two set of ruler, one from Bahmani and another from Vijayanagar, that how they are going to consolidate their position. And both of these kingdoms did consolidate their position. Bahmani in Deccan region and Vijayanagar in southern region. So Harihar ruled for some time, but his son Buka, he further expanded the territory. Buka's son, his name is, he is very famous person in, I told you in last class about a book called Marudu Vijayam, jo book hai. So Buka's son Kumar Kampan, he led a conquest into Madurai. And overall, even though Madurai was not immediately annexed, it was annexed only after few decades later. But nonetheless, Madurai was defeated. And overall, Vijayanagar consolidated their position in the southern region. Now, Vijayanagar kingdom is why it is so important, because it, in fact, we can say that in the entire ancient and medieval history, it is the only southern kingdom which united all of southern region under one banner. Because if you talk about early Cholas, Sangam Cholas, even then you had at least three important chiefs, Cholas, Cheras, Pandyas. If you talk about let's say 7th century, then you still have Pallavas, Chalukyas and Pandyas of Madurai. When you talk about imperial Cholas, Rajaraja, Rajendra Chola, then along with them, along with imperial Cholas, Western Chalukyas are also very powerful. Even Rashtrakutas were not able to consolidate their rule in entire southern India. So Vijayanagar in that way became the only kingdom which united all of the chiefs under one banner, and the kingdom remained glorious for about 200 years. So I told you that the kingdom was set up in 1336, but the decline happened in 1565, even though the kingdom may have continued till 1650. In some books it is also written 1670, doesn't matter. By 1565 itself, the glory of Vijayanagar came to an end, which I told you in the last class. Very famous battle called Battle of Talikota. And that also actually led to the disintegration process. But nonetheless, we will talk about it. So just write down few things about Vijayanagar kingdom. Give this heading Vijayanagar kingdom. Write down here, with the decline of Kakatiyas, Yadavas, Hoysalas, with the decline of Kakatiyas, Yadavas, Hoysalas, and Pandyas. With the decline of Kakatiyas, Yadavas, Hoysalas, and Pandyas, there was a power vacuum in Deccan and South. There was power vacuum in Deccan and South. Deccan and South, which led to foundation of Vijayanagar kingdom in 1336 and Bahmani Sultanate in 1347. So within a gap of 10 years. 1347. Vijayanagar was founded by, write down, Vijayanagar was founded by two brothers, Harihar Rai and Buka Rai. Harihar Rai and Buka Rai. Vijayanagar became its capital. अब ब्रैकेट में लिख लेना मॉडर्न हम्पी. Vijayanagar became its capital. Modern Hampi. Vijayanagar जो city है, so city is, why we call it Vijayanagar, because the capital is, Vijayanagar became the capital. Situated at the banks of Tungabhadra river. Situated at the banks of Tungabhadra river. The kingdom was ruled by four dynasties. The kingdom was ruled by four dynasties. Sangam dynasty, Salluva dynasty, Tulluva dynasty, and Adavidu dynasty. Sangam rulers, they may have ruled from 1336 to 1485, the longest time. 1485 to 1505. 1505 to 1570 and 1570 to 1650. In some cases, you'll also find this 1565 and then 1570. That simply signifies Battle of Talikota. So give this heading Sangam dynasty. It was named after, write down, it was named after father of Harihar and Buka. Harihar and Buka. They adopted, write down, they adopted Varah as their royal emblem. As their royal emblem. Same as Chalukyas. Varaha is basically boar, one of the avatars of Vishnu. They adopted Varaha as the royal emblem. Under Bukharai, in fact, sorry, write it down. The first two rulers were Harihar and Bukharai. The first two rulers were Harihar Rai and Bukharai. Harihar Rai and Bukharai. During Bukharai, the territory expanded. And Bukha's son Kumar Kampan is credited with a victorious campaign in Madurai Sultanate. A victorious campaign in Madurai Sultanate. By the way, the most powerful and the greatest ruler of the dynasty, his name was Devarai II. So Devarai I and Devarai II, both are considered as the great rulers of this dynasty. Now why Devarai II especially? Because I told you that by the setting of itself, Vijayanagar and Bahmani, they entered into series of conflict. And that conflict went on for hundreds of years. Now it was actually, most of the conflicts entered into stalemate. Some cases Vijayanagar, some cases Bahmani, but most of the cases it was frankly, it entered into stalemate, and that was perplexing for Vijayanagar rulers, because in terms of prosperity, they were, of course, they had a bigger army perhaps also, they were more prosperous also, so they felt that they lacked in cavalry. अब जैसे अभी जो पूरा एक हिंदू मुस्लिम बाइनरी बना के रखा हुआ है, that how this Hindu Muslim binary, by the way, even at this point of time, Vijayanagar ruler proclaimed themselves as protectors of Hindus, protectors of cows, a protector of Hinduism. They did do that, but at the same time, whenever it was a necessity, they did not, ऐसा नहीं है कि they did not accept Muslims into their administration. The very good example is Devarai II. That Devarai II enlisted many Muslim cavalry, many Muslim nobles, and the goal here was to procure more and more cavalry from Persian region, and for that he also, they had many Muslim commanders also in the army. तो आप लिख सकते हो Devarai II is considered as the greatest ruler of the dynasty. Who enlisted many Muslims in the administration, gave them jagirs, and significantly invested in cavalry. There's a बहुत famous description I told you about Farishta. That Farishta, his account is one of the Tarikh-e Farishta I told you in the first class of medieval history. That is a very important source to know about both Sultanate as well as about Vijayanagar and Bahmanis. Farishta was patronized by Sultanate, Bijapur Sultanate and Ahmednagar Sultanate, Golconda Sultanate also, but mostly by Bijapur Sultanate by Ibrahim Adil Shah. So Farishta wrote a book into 13 volumes where he talked about history of different regions of India, including history of Sufism. So he in his account writes during the reign of Devarai II that in every aspect Vijayanagar was superior compared to Bahmanis. Perhaps Bahmanis maintained their superiority because they showed lot of valor during war, but nonetheless in terms of wealth, in terms of prosperity, in terms of finance, in every aspect Vijayanagar was clearly superior. Write down next paragraph. Between 1460 to 65, can you, there is noise coming from the other class, and this happened in the previous class also. Please ask the IT team. I don't think noise should come from this class. So it is coming from the other class. Between 1460 to 65, the Gajpat, 1460 to 65, Gajpati army, Gajpati rulers of Odisha, had attacked Vijayanagar many times. Had attacked Vijayanagar many times and emerged victorious. Rulers were incompetent. Because of this, the power passed on to military commander Salluwa Narasimha. So give the next heading. Salluwa dynasty. Salluwa Narasimha declared himself to be the king in 1485. Salluwa Narasimha declared himself to be the king in 1485. He defended Vijayanagar from Gajpatis. And recovered parts of coastal Andhra. Because of, write down, because of continuous military campaigns, his sons were kept under the care of another commander, Narsa Nayaka. Last class में बताया था कि नरसा नायका, even though he was faithful to Salluwa Narasimha, his son was not. So Narsa Nayaka's son, his name was Narsimha. So Narsimha killed Narsimha Rai. Narsimha killed the sons of Salluwa Narasimha and he declared himself to be the ruler. And he became the founder of Tulluwa dynasty. But Tulluwa dynasty, so he of course faced a lot of rebellion because first of all Salluwa Narasimha was a very respected person. He had defended the kingdom from a lot of invasions and his own sons were killed by another military commander. Salluwa Narasimha was, because of rebellion, he was very soon replaced by his half brother, step brother basically, Sri Krishna Deva Rai. Now Sri Krishna Deva Rai is neither the founder of Vijayanagar nor the founder of Tulluwa dynasty also. It should be very clear. Because Sri Krishna Deva Rai is considered as the greatest ruler of the dynasty, people often think that he set up Tulluwa dynasty. So he was the second ruler of Tulluwa dynasty. Tulluwa because their mother tongue were Tullu. Tullu is again one of the southern languages, Dravidian languages. But nonetheless, Sri Krishna Deva Raya himself became a great patron of Telugu language rather than Tulu or even Kannada language. Now, why this is important? Because before Tuluas, the Sangams, for example, the Sangam rulers, they were great patron of Kannada literature and Sanskrit literature. So Vijayanagar, that is why often it is also called Kannada kingdom. But then during time of Sri Krishna Deva Raya, you can say that it became a Telugu kingdom. That one of the, he became not just patron of Telugu literature. He had a group of poets into his court called Ashtadiggaj collectively, very similar to how there were no Ratnas during Vikramaditya. So he had court poet called Ashtadiggaj, and almost all of the Ashtadiggaj were they were basically poets of Telugu literature. Most famous being, of course, Allasani Pedana, which I told you in the previous class also. And another very famous name is Tenali Raman, of course. If you have read Akbar Birbal's story, then you have very similar stories involving Sri Krishna Deva Raya and Tenali Raman. So Tenali Raman was one of the Ashtadiggaj of Sri Krishna Deva Raya. Write down. The dynasty came to an end. The dynasty came to an end only after a brief period. Only after a brief period of 2 decades. 2 decades. Give the heading Tulluva dynasty. Tulluva dynasty. Right on here, it was established by Veer Narasimha Rai. It was established by Veer Narasimha Rai. He was succeeded by his half-brother Sri Krishna Deva Raya. Sri Krishna Deva Raya. So give this heading. From 1505 to 1529. 1505 to 1529. Now, there are many reasons why Sri Krishna Deva Raya is considered as the greatest ruler of the dynasty. The first immediate reasons are that when he became ruler, there were a lot of rebellions. There were rebellions happening in Mysore region. Some Bahmanis were again, so not Bahmani at this point of time was weakened, but nonetheless, they realized that Vijayanagar is weakened right now. So they were leading their military campaigns into Tungabhadra, Krishna Godavari Delta region. Gajpatis had become very powerful, and they had captured some of the territories of Vijayanagar kingdom. So Sri Krishna Deva Raya, his immediate campaign was to recover all this lost territory and crush all the internal rebellions within Vijayanagar kingdom. And he was able to do that in only about few years. So he crushed all the internal rebellions, defeated Gajpatis, not only defeated them, but persuaded them till Odisha, till their capital. Then his another campaign was against Bahmanis. Same thing happened in this case also, that not only he defeated them, but he persuaded the army up to Bidar, which was basically one of the major city of Bahmani Sultanate. A very famous battle happened, which is called Battle of Raichur. And in this Battle of Raichur, he was able to recover, for example, some of the most important forts, which were a point of contention between these two kingdoms. So that was one part, that why he is considered as one of the greatest, not one of the, perhaps the greatest ruler of the dynasty, of the entire kingdom. But another reason, he became a great patron of art and culture. Some of the greatest temples were further enlarged, started construction also, further enlarged. Finest example of again Dravidian architecture is found during Vijayanagar Empire. Another very famous example is this temple called Virupaksha temple, but should not be confused with another Virupaksha temple of Cholas. So Virupaksha temple or Vijay Vittal temple. He himself was a great scholar. For example, I already told you in last class that he wrote a very famous book called Amukt Malyada, which is basically story of Andal, Gauda Devi. So Gauda Devi is known but Andal. And Andal marriage with Lord Rangnayak is the main plot of Amukt Malyada. So he himself was a great scholar and he became great patron of art and culture in general. So Telugu literature especially flourished a lot, and because of this, this period is called Golden Age of Vijayanagar history. So in around 1528, he was working on having a large army so that he can defeat Bahmanis properly now and he could end this conflict. But then he died because of some infectious disease. And in 1529, his son was, at this point of time, was minor. So his younger brother called Achyut Devarai, he became the ruler, but he was not very powerful. His claim was contested by son-in-law of Sri Krishna Deva Rai, and his name was Rama Rai. And Rama Rai was a very shrewd person. He was a great strategist, and because of that, very soon he acquired all of the power. He did not declare himself to be the king, but nonetheless he was the de facto ruler of Tulluva dynasty at this point of time. And Rama Rai, all power, so for example, the minor son of Krishna Deva Rai, he was given, not exactly, he was not arrested, but he was, for all practical purposes, he was house arrested. So Rama Rai now had the free hand, whatever he wanted to do it, he did that basically. There are many allegations against him. For example, one of the allegations is that till this point of time, Vijayanagar had accepted meritocracy as a criteria to give important positions to nobles or military commanders, but Rama Rai did not follow that. Many of his close associates, his faithfuls, confidants, they were given important position. But nonetheless, in one sense, he was very successful. That at this point of time, जो Bahmani Empire है, that was disintegrated into smaller kingdom. I already have told you this. 5 kingdoms emerged, but 3 were the most powerful one: Ahmednagar, Bijapur, and Golconda. And Rama Rai was able to play each of the Bahmani Sultanate, Deccan Sultanate, now I am going to use the word Deccan Sultanate, each of the Deccan Sultanate against each other. At one point of time, he allied with one, fought with another, so on and so forth. So finally, Deccan Sultanates realized that despite all the enmity we have to fight this common enemy. And this is exactly what they did. So in 1565, all the combined army of Bijapur, Ahmednagar, and Golconda, they fought a battle against Vijayanagar. Rama Rai himself was leading the army, but because of the military tactics, because of the fact that Bahmanis had invested a lot into cannons, I'm going to talk about Bahmanis, and I'm going to talk about a person called Mahmud Gawan, and how Mahmud Gawan had called many Persian chemists, and with the help of Persian chemists, he had invested a lot into gunpowder and cannon. And those cannons, of course, the Bahmanis had superior cavalry also. So because of that, and with military tactics, finally Vijayanagar kingdom was defeated. Rama Rai himself was captured and killed, and very soon after that, the Bahmani army entered into Vijayanagar. The capital was destroyed. It was deserted by the brother of Rama Rai, and he set up what we call Aravidu dynasty. But Aravidu dynasty, even though it ruled as ruler of Vijayanagar, but nonetheless Vijayanagar itself was deserted by Aravidus, and they shifted their capital from one location to another location. The dynasty continued to rule for some time, but for all practical purposes, it was not a very powerful empire. तो आप लिख सकते हो. Give the settings Sri Krishna Deva Rai and write down. He is considered as the greatest ruler of kingdom. He is considered as the greatest ruler of kingdom. Greatest ruler of kingdom. He was a great warrior. He was a great warrior, a statesman, an able administrator, and patron of art and literature, patron of art and literature. He defeated Gajpatis, write down, he defeated Gajpatis, crushed internal rebellion, crushed internal rebellion, and also defeated Bahmanis, also defeated Bahmanis. Write down next bullet point. Large tanks and canals were built for irrigation. Large tanks and canals were built for irrigation. He maintained friendly relations with Portuguese and Arab traders. He maintained friendly relations with Portuguese and Arab traders. Arab traders. Next, land revenue was decided. Land revenue was decided after proper assessment of the land. After proper assessment of the land. Write down. He himself was a great scholar. He himself was a great scholar. Great scholar. Author of Amukt Malyada. He himself was a great scholar, author of Amukt Malyada, of Telugu literature, of Telugu literature. His court was adorned with, his court was adorned with 8 great scholars, collectively known as, his court was adorned with 8 great scholars, collectively known as Ashtadiggaj, collectively known as Ashtadiggaj. You can write down their names. Few names you have to remember. For example, the very first, Alasani Pedan. Alasani Pedan is very famous for his work called Manu Charita. Tenali Ram, of course, you should know, very famous for his witty replies. Very similar to the stories of Akbar and Birbal, the stories of Krishna Deva Raya and Tenali Raman. Tenali Raman or Tenali Ramakrishna is also at some places. Another great scholar was Dhurjati. Nandi Thimanna, Ram Bhadra Kavi, Pingali Surana, Ram Raj Bhushan, and Mallan. Write down next paragraph. After his death, after his death in 1529, in 1529, his younger brother Achyut Devarai, his younger brother Achyut Devarai became king, became king as his son was minor, as his son was a small child, as his son was a small child. There was a succession dispute, write down. There was a succession dispute. There was a succession dispute involving Ramarai, involving Ramarai, son-in-law of Shri Krishna Deva Rai, son-in-law of Shri Krishna Deva Rai, gradually, Ramarai became the de facto ruler. Ramarai became the de facto ruler. Ramarai became the de facto ruler. He was a great tactician, write down. He was a great tactician and was able to play Muslim rulers of Deccan Sultanate, Muslim rulers of Deccan Sultanate against one another, was able to play Muslim rulers of Deccan Sultanate against one another. However, in 1565, Battle of Talikota, Battle of Talikota. This battle is also sometimes called Battle of Rakshasi Tangadi because there is a village called Rakshasi Tangadi near this, and so another name of if I am not pronouncing it correctly, then I'm really sorry, but I think it should be pronounced as Rakshasi Tangadi. It's a Kannada word. In Battle of Talikota, a combined army of Bijapur, Ahmednagar and Golconda, combined army of Bijapur, Ahmednagar and Golconda defeated Vijayanagar, Ramarai was captured and executed. Ramarai was captured and executed. The city of Vijayanagar The city of Vijayanagar was destroyed right on. Younger brother of, so brother of, I'm not very sure if he was younger or elder brother. Simply right on. Brother of Ramarai, Tirumalla. Tirumalla set up the Adavidu dynasty. Set up the Adavidu dynasty. And declared himself to be the king. Declared himself to be the king. The dynasty continued to rule for few decades. The dynasty continued to rule for few decades. However, for all practical purposes, the glory of Vijayanagar ended with Battle of Talikota. The glory of Vijayanagar ended with Battle of Talikota. So this is about the political development, political history of Vijayanagar kingdom. Let's talk about their administrative setup, some of the important innovations which happened during this period of time. आप एक लाइन ऐड कर सकते हो. The conflicts between Vijayanagar and Bahmani. The conflicts between Vijayanagar and Bahmani mainly occurred for following reasons. Tungabhadra Doab, Marathwada region, and Krishna Godavari Delta. Marathwada region and Krishna Godavari Delta. Give the heading, Administration of Vijayanagar. Few things first. King is of course absolute authority without any doubt. Many local chiefs, however, ruled under king. Now there are few interesting things about Vijayanagar which we should know. Just say one of the most famous administrative innovation they did is called Nayak system. Now, Nayak system is very similar to perhaps Iqtidari system of Delhi Sultanate. But Iqtidari system, फिर भी, as I told you, that it was not a very well thought out plan. जो Nayak system है, that was much more organized compared to Iqtidari system. So for who are Nayaks exactly? For example, you have Iqtidars, holder of Iqta land. So Nayaks are basically military commanders. जो important officials in the army है, they were called Nayak. They were given a type of land. This land was called Amaram. Land was given because they have to maintain an army contingent and they have to help king from time to time. So the type of land which was given to them, it was called Amaram land, and because of that this entire setup is called Amar Nayak system. Now Amar Nayak system is one of the important innovations of Vijayanagar Empire, and especially it worked really well during time of Sri Krishna Deva Rai. So that is one aspect. Apart from that, you have proper administrative division. You have again very similar to division of imperial cholas. You have mandalams here, but below mandalams you have नाडूज, अस्थल्स एंड ग्रामर्स. सो यहाँ पे भी जो लोकल गवर्नमेंट है वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले करता है. Lot of investment happened into irrigation system. That is quite interesting. Another aspect is the land revenue hai, that is not very high, very similar to previous kingdoms. It is about 1/6 of the produce, and that is the major source of economy. However, trade, because Vijayanagar kingdom, they had access to some of the premium ports, and at this point of time, not exactly during setup, but Portuguese had come to India, and already there was a trade with Arabs. So trade with Arabs and Persian region, that had continued. But another interesting development which happened was trade with Portuguese. And for example, especially Sri Krishna Dev Rai invested a lot into maintaining trade with Portuguese, and he was able to procure a lot of weapons or horses for his army, especially against conflict against Bahmani kingdom. तो आप लिख सकते हो, the king was absolute authority. The king was absolute authority. Absolute authority, who was assisted by a council of minister, who was assisted by a council of minister. The empire was divided into different administrative units, called mandalams, nadus, asthal, and grama. Mandalams, nadu, asthal, grama. The governor of Mandalam was called Mandaleshwar. The governor of Mandalam was called Mandaleshwar. Land revenue, write down, land revenue was generally 1/6 of the produce, which was the major source of revenue, for the state, Apart from this, customs collected at the ports, taxes on various professions, tributes and gifts from feudatories, where other sources in judicial administration, write down, in judicial administration, harsh punishments were given for criminal offenses, such as mutilation, cutting, chopping of hands, something like that, mutilation, throwing to elephants, etc. throwing to elephants, etc. In the same, write down next paragraph, give this heading, Nayak system. Nayak system. The top officers of the army, write down, the top officers of the army, the top officers of the army were known as Nayak or polygars. Were known as Nayak or polygars. But एक चीज और clear होना चाहिए, Nayak sometimes is also used for soldiers in general. Even though Nayak, when I am using the word Nayak system or Amar Nayak system, then I'm talking about military commanders. But nonetheless, sometimes the word Nayak is also used for normal soldiers. The army was well organized. The army was well organized. Well organized. And army commanders were granted land in lieu of their services. In lieu of their services. This land was called Amaram. This land was called Amaram. This land was called Amaram. And that is why in some cases you will find Nayak as Amar Nayak system. Both are same thing, no difference. Nayaks belong to different castes. Nayaks belong to different caste. Have they देखा है? फिर से एक बार देखो जरा. Some students are complaining. Nayaks belonged to different castes. Soldiers were usually paid in cash. Soldiers were usually paid in cash. Nayaks were required to pay. Nayaks were required to pay a certain amount of revenue to the king. Certain amount of the revenue to the king. And also bestowed gifts and tributes. Also bestowed gifts and tributes to the king. To the king, especially during Mahanavami festival. Especially during Mahanavami festival. ये लास्ट क्लास में बताया था कि जो दशहरा फेस्टिवल है दैट वाज सेलिब्रेटेड. सो महानवमी इज दुर्गाष्टमी, जो पूरा 9 days, and then 10th day Dashera. This was very popular during time of Vijayanagar. And king, for example, this was also a strategic move that every year all the Nayaks of the kingdom, they have to come and they have to accept again the authority of the king by providing lot of tributes and lot of gifts. So king also wanted to ensure that any type of defecting tendency or any type of decentralization tendency, that is not going to be tolerated. Write down. Next point. From the kingdom of Vijayanagar, other kingdoms emerged later. For example, Mysore, even Madras presidency, जो ब्रिटिशर्स ने एक प्रेसिडेंसी पूरा बनाया था, मद्रास प्रेसिडेंसी, etc. Especially Mysore is very important because of Tipu Sultan Hyder Ali and their fight with East India Company. ये modern history में detail में discuss करा है. So Mysore originally by Hoysalas, but then again a period of 200-250 years by Vijayanagar, and then again by Hyder Ali, Tipu Sultan, very important, and of course later it was annexed by East India Company. So that is a major part of, again, this is a very important topic for both prelims as well as mains examination. In prelims they have asked question on art and culture from Vijayanagar, Hampi के जो temple architecture उस पे UPSC ने पूछ रखा है. They have asked question about Sri Krishna Dev Rai administrative reforms. They have asked about a question in mains examination. जैसे एक जो question था, write it down. Very simple question. Sri Krishna Dev Rai was not just himself a great scholar, was not himself just a great scholar, he also was a great patron of, art and learning. He also was great patron of art and learning. Discuss. इस क्वेश्चन में आप क्या करोगे? You'll talk about, if you remember, if you can recollect the time period, mention it, talk about, just in, again, the question should not focus on his political expedition. Question का focus ही नहीं है. आप simply एक दो line में बस आप mention कर सकते हो that he is credited, he is called the greatest ruler of the Vijayanagar kingdom because of his political achievements also. But that is not the main part of the question. You have to talk about his accreditation that he is a great scholar. Talk about the book I told you, Amukta Malyada. Then talk about Ashtadiggaj, the concept of Ashtadiggaj. If you can recollect some names, write about them. Some of the works, you can mention that works of Kannada, Telugu, Sanskrit, all literature flourished during Vijayanagar kingdom. Right? तो ये सारी चीजें आपको example, जितना example आप लोगे, if you can recollect specific example of temple like Vijay Vittal temple or Virupaksh temple, उतना better होगा. So be more specific, use specific examples while writing answer to substantiate your point, and you will get very good marks in this question. Give the next heading, Bahmani kingdom. And I don't think I have to tell you that even temple architecture of Hampi, that is also part of UNESCO World Heritage Site. तो जो विजयनगर kingdom के जो temples हैं, they are part of UNESCO World Heritage Site. अब यहाँ पे भी एक बड़ा सा interesting सा story है बहमनी kingdom के origin का. Although this story is contested, it is mentioned by Farishta. So the story goes something like this, that during time of Muhammad bin Tughlaq, a person called Bahman Shah was given a territory of Deccan region that he should become the noble. But then there is also a story that Bahman Shah had a very noble, he basically had a very humble origin. He was not a noble or anything like that. In fact, he was employed by one of the Brahmins. His name was Pandit Gangadhar Shastri. And Pandit Gangadhar Shastri was a great astrologer. And it is mentioned that, for example, he had already written about him that he is going to emerge as, he is going to become a royal. And because of that, when he actually became royal, he took the title of Bahman Shah. His original name was not Muhammad Shah. So, his original name was not Bahman Shah. So he took the title of Bahman Shah. Now there are two theories here, that either it was to commemorate one of the Persian mythical hero Bahman, or it was a tribute to his Brahman patron Gangadhar Shastri. But because of this story of Brahman patron, he is also called Hasan Gangu. So his name is another very famous name who is of Mehman Shah is Hasan Gangu. And many people think that this is again because his patron was Pandit Gangadhar Shastri. But nonetheless, Mehman Shah declared independence from Delhi, and then he became independent de facto ruler. He divided entire of his kingdom into 4 provinces. He called them Tarafs. For example, all the 4 provinces, Bijapur, Golconda, Ahmednagar, they all were different provinces. They had lot of autonomy. His son was Muhammad Shah I, and Muhammad Shah I fought series of war for like 10-15 years without any gain as such, with Vijayanagar of course, without much of a gain. But however, he was able to defeat some of the local chiefs in the Warangal region, and he was able to collect lot of wealth. Another important ruler is Firoz Shah Bahmani. So there are only 3 rulers you have to know here. First is Bahman Shah, second is Muhammad Shah his son, and third is Firoz Shah Bahmani. Now Firoz Shah Bahmani is very similar to Deva Rai too. Firoz Shah Bahmani was the one who started inducting Hindus into administration of Deccan Sultanate. He is also considered a great scholar of many disciplines together. For example, he had good knowledge of geometry, theology, jurisprudence, logic also. But apart from all these names, one person you have to remember the name from Bahmani kingdom is not a ruler but prime minister. His name was Mahmud Gawan. Now Mahmud Gawan was a very able administrator. After Firoz Shah Bahmani, jo rulers and they are incompetent. They are drunkard people. They do not have to invest a lot into administration. Because of that, many local chiefs jo ye alag-alag provinces ke jo chiefs hain, they had become very powerful. They were, even though they had accepted the authority of dynasty, but nonetheless, they had actually become quite powerful. But nonetheless, so 2 rulers, Humayun Shah and Muhammad Shah III, names are not important. These 2 rulers had employed Mahmud Gawan. Now Mahmud Gawan was a person who belonged to Persian region. He had come from Persia, so he was an outsider. And he was a very able administrator when he came to India. So for example, he realized that we have to increase the revenue of the provinces. So he divided provinces from 4 to 8 now, curtailed lot of power from the provincial chiefs, and instituted measures to increase the revenue of the central authority. So that was quite good. That was very good setup. He also called many Persian chemists into India and started investing into making cannons, gunpowders into India at this point of time. And why this is important? Because a lot of people think that Babur introduced gunpowder, but that is actually not true. In some textbook it is mentioned that Babur, when he came to India, he introduced gunpowder, but that is not true, because gunpowder was first invented into China, from China, but Chinese did not actually think that we can weaponize it. Chinese thought of gunpowder exactly what we think of gunpowder during Diwali, patakhe jalate. So Chinese used it for celebration. But from Chinese, Arabs learned the art of making gunpowder, and from Arabs, Europeans learned the gunpowder, art of making gunpowder, and they were the one who weaponized gunpowder. So especially the Portuguese and Spanish kingdom, they were the first who weaponized gunpowder, and they were the one who introduced this into India. But nonetheless, Mahmud Gawan invested a lot into increasing the capability of his army, and all of his administrative measures, that was quite useful for the kingdom, but because of that it also created a lot of enemy for him. Now he lived during a time when Bahmani kingdom was going through a conflict between Afakis and Dakhinis. Now Dakhinis are basically Deccanis, that nobles who have local origin, who have been in India for quite some time now, so they called themselves Dakhinis from Deccan, and Afakis were used. It was used as a term that anyone who had come from outside. Now Mahmud Gawan, jo bhi contemporary historians, all of them mention that Mahmud Gawan did not as such favor based on, he himself was an outsider, so there was an allegation against him that he is favoring outsiders. But many historians think that that was not the case. And many, of course, nobles did not like Mahmud Gawan. So they started plotting against him. And one of the plot was, for example, a fake letter was written where Mahmud Gawan was talking. Apparently, he had sent a letter to Vijayanagar ruler that this is the right time, come and attack Bahmanis. But that letter was forged, it was a fake letter. But the king was hardly 21, 22 years old. He was a drunkard, complete drunkard. His name was Muhammad Shah III. When he received this letter, he also did not like the fact that his prime minister has become so powerful. So, in a drunken state, he gave the order of execution of Mahmud Gawan. And Mahmud Gawan was at this point of time was in his late 70s, 70, 80 years old. And he was executed on the order of a drunken sultan. When Sultan got to know later that this entire letter was fake, there was a conspiracy against Gawan. He realized his mistake, and it is said that he died of grief just 2-3 years later. So one person who could have saved Bahmani kingdom from the disintegration, that all the provinces and all the internal conflict, that also died, and that death happened in around late 1480s. And in next 10-15 year, one by one, all the provinces started declaring their independence. And by 1520, the Bahmani kingdom at one point of time, it was disintegrated into 5 sultanates, collectively known as Deccan Sultanate. But out of those 5 sultanates, जो Bidar and Berar हैं, they did not remain independent for very long. So 3 sultanates did remain, Bijapur, Golconda and Ahmednagar, which I just talked about, that how they came together during Battle of Talikota. But again, after that battle also, same thing, that their जो personal enmity है, जो conflict है, that continued even after that battle. In fact, there is one ruler from Bijapur, which ideally we should know, not of Bahmani, Bijapur, called Ibrahim Adil Shah. I will talk about Ibrahim Adil Shah जब हम थोड़े regional kingdoms के बारे में discuss करेंगे, once I complete the discussion of Mughal Empire. So just write down few things here. In Bahmani kingdom, it was founded by Alauddin Hassan. It was founded by Alauddin Hassan. आप ब्रैकेट में लिख लेना, also known as Hassan Gangu. Hassan Gangu, as he had risen in the service of his Brahman patron Pandit Gangadhar Shastri. He had risen in the service of his Brahman patron Pandit Gangadhar Shastri. He adopted the title of Bahman Shah. He adopted the title of Bahman Shah. And because of this, kingdom is called Bahmani. Because of this, kingdom is called Bahmani. His son Muhammad Shah I, fought series of war with Vijayanagar without much gain. A great ruler from the dynasty was Firoz Shah Bahmani. A great ruler from the dynasty was Firoz Shah Bahmani. Who inducted Hindus in administration. Write down here. Later rulers were not competent. Despite this, despite this, Bahmani remained powerful. Bahmani remained powerful because of because of Mahmud Gawan, because of Mahmud Gawan, who served as prime minister of two rulers, Humayun Shah and Muhammad Shah III. Mahmud Gawan he divided four provinces called Tarafs. He divided four provinces called Tarafs into eight and tried to control military power of governor. Tried to control military power of governor. He used Persian chemists. To teach the preparation and use of gunpowder. Write down next bullet point. His reforms, though good for kingdom, infuriated many nobles. Nobles were divided into two groups. Deccanese and Afakis. Nobles were divided into two groups, Deccanese and Afakis. So Deccanese are local nobles, Afakis who have come into India from outside, especially from Persian and Arab region. Mahmud Gawan himself was an Afaki. Afaki. In a conspiracy against him, he was falsely accused of plotting against the king. He was falsely accused of plotting against the king and was executed on the orders of Muhammad Shah III. In 1481 AD. In 1481 AD. Write down one last point. Bahmani kingdom gradually disintegrated and was divided into five smaller kingdoms. Golconda, ruled by Qutub Shahi dynasty. First, Golconda, ruled by Qutub Shahi dynasty. Bijapur, ruled by Adil Shahi dynasty. Ahmednagar, Nizam Shahi dynasty. Berar, Imad Shahi dynasty. And Bidar, however, एक लाइन लिख लेना, however, territories of Bidar and Berar were annexed mainly by Bijapur, and Ahmednagar respectively. Who emerged as powerful kingdom. And by the way, they did remain. प्रोविंस जो प्रोविंशियल डिवीजन था ना, प्रोविंसेस को जो हम बोलते हैं, जैसे इन केस ऑफ विजयनगर इट इज मंडलम. तो जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल ये जो सारे रीजन्स हैं, बेरार, अहमदनगर, गोलकुंडा, these are provinces. These provinces are called tarafs and they are kept under tarafdar. So जिस तरीके से provincial governor होता है. So one line for example I made you write is that how Mahmud Gawan wanted to check the power of governor. So basically he wanted to check the power of these tarafdars, that because they were become very powerful and they were challenging the authority of Shah dynasty, जो पूरा बहमनी kingdom है. So हाँ, 4 को 8 में बना दिया. But again of course 8 रह नहीं गया फिर वो. Finally, it led to emergence of 5 sultanate, but even not 5, these 2 were also. So Ahmednagar captured some part of Berar, entire of Bidar was almost captured by Bijapur, and some part of Berar was also captured by Golconda. So Bidar and Berar, they did not remain independent for very long. But ये जो बाकी के 3 हैं, they remained of course independent and they created lot of nuisance for especially Aurangzeb army, which I'm very sure you have read about in modern history classes, that his Deccan campaign जो है, that was a primary reason behind the depletion of treasury of Mughal and behind the reason of decline of Mughal Empire. So any question till now, because my last topic and last major topic of medieval history, we will talk about some other independent regional kingdoms which had emerged by Tughlaq. अभी तक हमने सिर्फ 2 ही kingdom discuss किए हैं, Vijayanagar kingdom and Bahmani kingdom. But in fact, many new kingdoms had emerged during time of after Firod Shah Tughlaq, after death of Firod Shah Tughlaq. For example, Gujarat had become independent, Bengal had become independent, Many Rajput rulers, they had again started accepting their authority. Kashmir was independent here. So there were many. Jaunpur was another independent kingdom. So there were many independent kingdoms at this point of time when Babur came to India. And most of this territory in North India, that was annexed by Akbar. So jo Akbar ka, in fact, let me show you the map of Mughal Empire. When Babur ruled India, that rule included mainly Ganga Doab region. Humayun could not do much. So Akbar further expanded the territory, and almost entire of North India and part of, in fact, Pakistan, significant part of Pakistan and part of Afghanistan also was under this territory. But it was Aurangzeb who led to campaign into Deccan, and at one point of time, the Aurangzeb empire hai, that included almost entire of India, perhaps except with the exception of the southernmost part. But almost entire of India was ruled by Aurangzeb. So Aurangzeb ka, however, jo pura time period hai, we can divide this into two times. He ruled for about 50 years, and for first 20-25 years he lived in Delhi, and for last 25 years his life he lived in Deccan also. He never returned to Delhi, and he died also into Deccan region. So before that will be my last topic. We will talk about some other regional kingdoms apart from Vijayanagar and Bahmani. But nonetheless, my next topic is Mughal Empire. But if you have any question till now, you can go ahead and ask in any of the topics. Virupaksha temple, exactly, I'm not very sure exactly कौन से ruler from Sangam dynasty, but I'm not very sure. मैं confirm करके बता दूंगा आपको. Patadakal. Patadakal में. So Patadakal जो है, Patadakal के temples हैं, they were mainly made by Chalukyas and Rashtrakutas. So जो पूरा दो तीन reason है, three reasons, Patadakal, Aihole and Hampi. These three regions are very famous for their temple architecture in the Karnataka region. But of course, then you also have temples into Kanchi and temples into Madurai. That was mainly constructed by Pallavas and later by Cholas. Any question till now? ये डिस्कस नहीं करें क्या? देखो यूरोपियन का जो एडवेंट है, आई डू नॉट डिस्कस इट हियर, बट जो रिलेशंस हैं, जैसे विजयनगर स्पेशली मेंटेन्ड अ फ्रेंडली रिलेशनशिप, और यूरोपियन का मतलब सिर्फ यहाँ पे सिर्फ पोर्टुगीज है. अभी तक बाकी जो यूरोपियंस है, दे हैव फ्रेंच एंड इंग्लिश, वो बहुत बाद में आएंगे, दे विल कम लेटर. सो फॉर एग्जांपल जो ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी के रिप्रेजेंटेटिव, दे कम टू कोर्ट ऑफ जहांगीर, बट पोर्टुगीज के साथ विजयनगर स्पेशली मेंटेन्ड अ फ्रेंडली रिलेशनशिप. Not always, however. For example, at one point of time, जो Goa है, that was captured by Portuguese, and because of that, Vijayanagar had fought with Portuguese. Bahmanis also fought with Portuguese, but most of the time they did maintain good trade relationship with Europeans. Some conflicts did happen from time to time, but nonetheless, trade definitely increased. Please elaborate. I'm not very sure about it. मतलब मुझे पढ़ना पड़ेगा ये वाली चीज़. जो अभी ये बहुत ही specific question है. अब उसका impact and how Dakkani. So I'm very, यहाँ पे जो विजयनगर है, that had by this point of time had declined. But जो Deccan Sultans है, what they did to cater to that, I will have to read into it. Aravidu के बारे में as such, except the fact there is a question that we haven't discussed about Aravidu dynasty, except the fact that this is called the fourth dynasty, I don't think more is required. And the fact that it was set up by brother of Rama Rai. So even though Rama Rai was also a ruler, he was de facto ruler. The only thing is that he did not declare himself to be the king, or he did not declare that he is the founder of the dynasty. But for all practical purposes, he can be called the first ruler of this dynasty. But nonetheless, officially the dynasty came to rule in about 1570 by his brother Tirumalla. There are few rulers like Venkat, Sri Ranga from Aravidu dynasty, but they played a minor role at this point of time. जो Nayaks हैं, जो Amar Nayaks, which I told you, Nayaks had become more powerful than rulers of Aravidu. So Aravidu dynasty के जो rulers हैं, उनके authority को other Nayaks or other chiefs did not accept. And because of that, I mentioned that the glory of Vijayanagar Empire had come to an end. And they were, of course, always also came in conflict with other Deccan Sultan. So Aravidu dynasty, I don't think you have to know in this detail, except the fact that this is considered the fourth and last dynasty to be ruling Vijayanagar kingdom. Any other question? Let's take a break here. After that, we will start our last major topic of medieval history, जो again prelims या mains examination दोनों के लिए काफी important है, about Mughal Empire. नहीं ये last class नहीं है. This is a question that ये last class है. ये important topic है, इतना जल्दी हम नहीं इसको भगा नहीं सकते हम. So let me briefly tell you about Mughal Empire. So at one point of time, of course, Mughals were ruling almost entire of India with few exceptions. But who exactly are Mughals? They came from outside. So Mughals ka jo first, it gave some of the great rulers of Mughal dynasty were the first six of the rulers. Babur, Humayun, Akbar, Jahangir, Shah Jahan, Aurangzeb. But at the same time, Babur ruled a very small part of India. So who exactly was Babur? So Babur was actually one of the descendant of Temur. Babur had both Turkish and Mongol heritage. He was a Turk from the Temur side, and from mother side he was a Mongol. Babur originally ruled a small principality in the region of Samarkand. Now Samarkand as of now it belongs to Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan, which is one of the Central Asian country. So Babur had a lot of support from Uzbeks, but at this point of time there was a triangular context going on between three group of people. One group of people themselves, Uzbeks were one, but at the same time you had Safavids, you had Ottomans. Safavids followed Shias, Ottomans followed Sunnis. So in this conflict between these three great kingdoms, Babur became ruler only when he was 12 years old. His principality was frankly not very large. He ruled a very smaller region. But when his father died, he became ruler at the age of 12. And very soon after this, his kingdom was captured and he had to run away from that. And he set up a kingdom into Kabul in Afghanistan. But again, he wanted to recapture his original lost territory. So he again attacked Samarkand, was able to reacquire it for a brief period of time. But again, then it was attacked and again he had to return back to Kabul. So this went on for about twice or thrice. So his initial phase of life that was filled with a lot of difficulty. But because of this difficulty, he also turned out to be a great military commander. He was a person with a lot of grit. He did not generally give up. He did not give up very easily. So because of that, he developed a lot of military tactics. And even though he was not very successful in the region of Uzbekistan, but around 1500, he now made up his mind that he is going to, not exactly 1500, around 1510, 1514, he made up his mind that he want to come to India. He had heard about India from many accounts of he had Ghazni ka pura account, of course, बहुत famous था ही, but he had also heard about India from the accounts of Temur himself, that Temur who was one of his ancestors. And Temur ka invasion and the amount of loot he was able to collect from Delhi and the people he had employed from Delhi, many of the greatest artisans, skilled person, they went from India to capital of Temur. So in any case, Babur thought about coming back to India as early as perhaps 1514, 1516. But he was not finding the right opportunity. And how do we know that? Because Babur himself wrote it. बाबर के बारे में जो सबसे important source है वो बाबर नामा करके एक book है. And he himself, again, by the way, he was a scholar also. So he wrote a book, his own biography called Babarnama. And in Babarnama, he does mention about that he wanted to come to India. He had heard about the riches of India. And when he finally received a letter from one of the governor of Ibrahim Lodi, Daulat Khan, who was governor of Punjab, by the way. Ibrahim Lodi was a very cruel ruler. He had killed his own brother. There were many rebellions going on during his kingdom. One rebellion happened in Punjab. But Daulat Khan did not think that he will be able to defeat Ibrahim Lodi. So he sent a letter to Babur. Babur now decided that rather than trying to capture his original territory in Uzbekistan, this is the time to make a move towards India. And he wanted to settle into India. He did not want to behave in the same way how Temur had done. So he wanted to set up independent kingdom into India. With that in mind, he first captured the region of Punjab because he thought that Punjab was originally captured by Tamur. So he felt that this is also his right, that it was captured by his ancestor. By the way, despite the fact that Daulat Khan had sent a letter, even Daulat Khan and Babur had a conflict. Daulat Khan later realized that maybe this is not a very good idea. So Babur had to defeat Daulat Khan. From region of Punjab, now he marched towards Delhi. Babur had a very small army, frankly. Ibrahim Lodi had a very large army. Now, how much this difference is in the armies, that is not very clear. Just there are exaggerations in some cases that the ratio was perhaps 10:2, 12:1. That may be an exaggeration. 10:1 is a very large ratio. But definitely the ratio was about 4:2 or 5:1. That Babur's army was 5 times or 4 times smaller than army of Ibrahim Lodi. Ibrahim Lodi had employed lakhs of people into his army, included a lot of things, elephants, horses. But Babur had few of his cavalry. But because, as I told you, that because of series of conflict he had fought in his earlier life, he had turned out to be a great military tactician. So when he came to Delhi, then he instituted basically a very interesting type of military tactic which is called Tulguma. And Tulguma technique, so what Babur did is that he dig lot of trenches. Panipat became the battlefield where Ibrahim Lodi and Babur army was going to fight. So he dig lot of trenches. In those trenches he kept lot of spikes. Then he made a 2-front. So basically, and his army had occupied a proper strategy like something like this. That there was, from the center there were cannons. So you have trenches dug here. You have cannons here. And here also his army, his cavalry is waiting for the right opportunity. So despite the fact that numerically he was inferior, when Ibrahim Lodi's army attacked first, their momentum was decreased because of these trenches. Now Babur deployed, Babur had many cannons, he knew about gunpowder, he knew about how to effectively use gunpowder. So he deployed those cannons, and those cannons create a lot of havoc in the army of Ibrahim Lodi. When the army was completely disoriented, leaderless, then this 2-front attack started happening from both the side and from the frontal attack. And despite the fact that he had a very smaller army, he emerged victorious. That is famously known as First Battle of Panipat, which happened in 1526. At this point of time, जो Rajput rulers, by the way, so if you think about it, in 1526 or before that, जो 16th century का जो early है, that is very similar to 12th century, that there is a power vacuum in Delhi. Lodis are not very powerful, there are a lot of rebellions happening. But, so in terms of political setup, it is very similar, but at the same time, there is a consciousness among Indian rulers that we do need to have a central authority. So compared to 12th century where Rajputs were fighting a lot, now many Rajput clans were coming together with one of the Rajput ruler from Mewar. He belonged to Sisodiya clan and his name was Maharana Sangram Singh, very famously known as Rana Sanga. So he himself was quite old, a very brave leader, a great statesman. So all of the other clans rallied behind him. Now Rana Sanga did not do anything in this battle because his best bet was that Babur is going to defeat Ibrahim Lodi, will collect lot of loot and will go back very similar to how his ancestors have done or how many Turkish invaders in the past have done. But when Babur decided to stay in India and when he made Delhi his capital, now this was a jolt to the ambitions of Maharana Sangram Singh. So, and Babur also realized that he cannot actually rule effectively in India as long as you have another very powerful central authority and many Rajput rulers are rallying behind him. So even a more significant battle than Panipat was another battle called Battle of Khanwa, which happened just next year in 1527. And in this battle, again, despite the fact that Sangram Singh had a more, in terms of number, his army was superior, but because of military tactics in Battle of Khanwa, Rana Sanga was defeated. So one ruler who could have challenged Babur's authority in North India, that challenge also ended. Now Babur became, at this point of time, as the most powerful ruler in North India. He did fight another war in next year called Battle of Chanderi, under which was from another Rajput ruler called Medini Rai. But nonetheless, that was he was able to win that battle very easily. And one last battle he fought in 1529 against Afghans, because even though Ibrahim Lodi was defeated in Delhi, Afghans का जो main central hold था वो बिहार और बंगाल region था. So Afghans were very powerful still in the Bihar and Bengal region. So he fought one more battle in 1529. That was his last battle. So because of this successive battle, and he emerged victorious in all of those battles, he was able to consolidate his position in the Ganga Yamuna Doab region. He did not have any time as such into investing into administration, but he had started the foundation of Mughal kingdom or Mughal empire. So when his son became the next ruler, Babur died in 1530. When his son Humayun, by the way, Babur had 3 sons, and Babur at his deathbed, he had taken a promise from Humayun that Humayun will share and will not fight with his brothers as such. So Babur did occupy the region of Punjab, Kabul, all of that belonged to his kingdom. But when Humayun became ruler, his rule was limited to Delhi, Agra region, Bihar, Bengal region. But जो Kabul region है, Punjab region है, that went to one of his brother called Kamran. That also may have been perhaps part of Mughal tradition. So when Humayun became ruler, Humayun faced a lot of challenges. First challenge he faced was that while Babur had lot of respect, lot of authority from his military commanders, from his nobles, Humayun did not enjoy the same level of respect. And Babur had respect because of his series of battle he had fought even during Uzbekistan region, in Afghanistan region, and even battles he fought in India. So Humayun did not enjoy that same level of respect. First problem. Second problem was that the kingdom is newly founded kingdom. You do not have, frankly, a lot of friends here. So you have lot of, in fact, Afghans, for example, they were very powerful in the region of Bihar, Bengal. They were also very powerful in Gujarat region, by the way. They had settled as independent kingdom into Gujarat region. At the same time, many Rajput rulers were still very powerful. And last problem he faced was that he has to share his power with his brother, and brothers he cannot rely upon. How do we know all of that? Again, there is a very famous book called Humayun Nama, not written by Humayun, but by his sister. And she mentions that all this conflict among brothers, how she does not like it, that all of us came from the same mother and still fighting over territories. But nonetheless, so Humayun faced a lot of challenges. One of the challenges he faced is from a ruler from Bengal called Sher Khan. And Sher Khan finally rebelled against Humayun, and in a very famous battle called Battle of Chausa in 1539, he defeated Humayun. And in 1540, another battle called Battle of Kannauj, he completely decimated the army of Humayun. Humayun had to flee from one region to another region. He first flew to Rajputana states. From there, he flew to Afghanistan. He stayed for some time in Persia also. And meanwhile, in Delhi, you have another kingdom called Sur Empire, led by Sher Shah Suri, that came into existence. So we'll talk about this. And Sher Shah Suri ka jo hai, he was a great administrator. He was one of the great rulers of medieval India. And we'll talk about his administrative reforms. But first thing first, let's know about the important books, important sources to know about Mughal history. So give this heading, Mughal Empire. Mughal Empire. Sources. Babur Nama. So it was initially written in one of the Turkish languages, but later it was translated into Persian by Abul Fazl. So Babur Nama, write down autobiography of Babur. Then there is a book called Tarikh-e-Rashidi. Tarikh-e-Rashidi was written by Mirza Haider Ali Duglat. He was cousin of Babur. So this book tells about both Babur and Humayun. Third very important book is Humayunama. This was written by Gulbadan Begum. Gulbadan Begum, daughter of Babur. Daughter of Babur. This is also a very interesting book because this book has been written from Babur's daughter perspective. So one part of the book talks about their upbringing, the conflict their father witnessed, and the second part of the book is about Humayun's reign. This book is also quite interesting because it tells you about the conditions of harem. Harem where all the women as well as their servants, all of them were kept in part of palace. This was called harem. So this book tells you the condition of harem also. Then the most important book is Akbarnama. Written by Abul Fazl. This book is written in 3 volumes. And the third volume hai, that is dedicated to the personal characterization of Akbar. So the third volume hai, this is called Aina-e-Akbari. Abul Fazl provides a lot of insight into characterization of Akbar into the third volume. Abul Fazl was a very accomplished Persian scholar, and because of that, this is a very important source to know about medieval India. Next book is a book called Badshah-Nama. Tuzuke-Jahangiri. This is autobiography of Jahangir. Badshah-Nama by Abdul Hamid Lahori. This tells you about the reign of Shah Jahan. Alamgir-Nama. This was written by Mirza Muhammad Kazim. The reign of Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb was called Alamgir also because of this. This book is called Alamgir-Nama. I have only told you the most famous books. Apart from that, जो मुगल हिस्ट्री को लेके sources की कमी नहीं है. There are many other books written during this period of time. paper is properly used on a much larger scale. जो invention of paper तो बहुत पहले हो गया था, but use of paper happened on much larger scale. So many of the works which have, by the way, survived, there are hundreds to thousands of diaries, royal proclamations written during different type of rulers. So all of those are also very important sources to know about Mughal history. So यहाँ पे sources की कमी नहीं है, and that is also a reason that why we have so much material, or why we have so much details about the political conquest of all of these rulers, Babur, and especially the first 6 rulers hai. So give the first heading, Babur. Babur ruled from 1526 to 1530. Right on. Babur ascended the throne at the age of 12 in a small region in Uzbekistan in Uzbekistan. In Uzbekistan, even today, Babur is celebrated as their hero. In Uzbekistan, because of race for political supremacy, amongst Uzbeks, Turks, and Safavids, his kingdom was defeated. His kingdom was defeated first by Safavids, later by Turks, and he had to take shelter around Kabul. Babur tried to recapture his kingdom but failed. And thus he made a decision to move towards India. He had Turkish Mongol heritage. His ancestor was Timur. And from mother's side, he was a Mongol. दोनों चीजें, why do we call Mughals ancestry from Mongol? तो Mongol से word आता है Mughal. Second, we also call them Timurid, that comes from Timur himself. So जो Mughal dynasty है, that is also called Timurid dynasty. आप लिख सकते हो, Mughal dynasty is also called Timurid dynasty. Timurid dynasty, because of lineage from Timur. Write down. When Babur received invitation from Daulat Khan, when Babur received invitation from Daulat Khan, Daulat Khan, he made up his mind, he made up his mind to set up a kingdom in India. To set up a kingdom in India. He captured the region of Punjab. He captured the region of Punjab. And in 1526, First Battle of Panipat, First Battle of Panipat, First Battle of Panipat, armies of Babur and Ibrahim Lodi, army of Babur and Ibrahim Lodi fought despite numerical inferiority. Despite numerical inferiority. Because of superior military tactics. Because of superior military tactics. Superior military tactics, Babur emerged victorious. Babur emerged victorious. He successfully applied Rumi method of warfare. ब्रैकेट में लिख सकते हो, also known as Tulguma. Runi method of warfare, also known as Tulguma. By the way, this was a method of warfare which was used first by Ottomans against Eastern Roman Empire. I told you in the last class that how Roman Empire was divided into two parts, Western Roman Empire and Eastern Roman Empire. तो ईस्टर्न रोमन एम्पायर का जो कैपिटल था वो कॉन्स्टेंटिनोपल था, बट कॉन्स्टेंटिनोपल फाइनली फेल बाय ऑटोमन्स एंड दैट लेड टू एस्टैब्लिशमेंट ऑफ व्हाट वी कॉल इस्तांबुल, राइट. तो जो अभी मॉडर्न टर्की है. सो ऑटोमन्स वेर द फर्स्ट हु डिप्लॉयड this Rumi method of warfare or Tulguma method of warfare effectively, and Babur had the knowledge of this warfare technique and he deployed that into India. Meanwhile, write down in next paragraph, meanwhile, many Rajput clans rallied behind Rana Sanga, ruler of Mewar of Sisodiya clan. अभी तो आपने पढ़ा होगा, मनीष सिसोदिया was saying, हम तो सिसोदिया राजपूत हैं, how can we do this, right? So ruler of Mewar of Sisodiya clan, Babur also realized that to effectively rule North India, He has to defeat Rana. He has to defeat Rana. In 1527, Battle of Khanwa. In 1527, Battle of Khanwa. Khanwa. Babur again emerged victorious. Babur again emerged victorious against Rana Sanga. Against Rana Sanga. तो एक तरीके से this was the biggest challenge Babur could face, and this biggest challenge was shattered. In 1528, write down, in 1528, Battle of Chanderi. Babur defeated Medini Rai. Babur defeated Medini Rai. Another Rajput ruler. Another Rajput ruler. And in 1529, 1529, Babur fought his last battle, Battle of Ghagra. Battle of Ghagra against Afghans. Against Afghans. Led by Mahmud Lodi. Led by Mahmud Lodi. Babur died in 1530. Babur died in 1530. And the rulers of, Babur died in 1530, and still the rulers of Gujarat, Malwa, Bengal, Gujarat, Malwa, Bengal, enjoyed substantial military power. Enjoyed substantial military power. So जो बाबर का 4 साल है, from 1526, he died in 1530 also. Every year he fought a battle, a major battle. But जो first 2 battles है, first battle of Panipat and battle of Khanwa, they actually provided the foundation of Mughal kingdom into India. And 1527 and 1528 and 1529, these battles he was able to easily win. So they did not as such prove to be much of a challenge. But nonetheless, there are many other rulers at this point of time. There are many regional kingdoms, and all of those regional kingdoms enjoyed substantial authority. So give the next heading, Humayun. Humayun had 2 stints in Delhi from 1530 to 1540 and 1555 to 56. Humayun faced many problems. Write down, Humayun faced many problems. Humayun faced many problems. The kingdom was not consolidated. The kingdom was not consolidated properly. The kingdom was not consolidated properly. इसका एक बहुत सिंपल सा मीनिंग है that even though territories have been conquered, but Babur did not have enough time to invest into administration. एक proper एक administrative setup बना के रखना, continuous source of revenue for the centralized authority, all of those things, that had not happened. First. Second, he did not command the respect of nobility. He did not command the respect of nobility in the same way Babur did. He did not command the respect of nobility in the same way Babur did. Next, he faced hostility from Afghans. He faced hostility from Afghans led by Sher Khan. Led by Sher Khan. And one more you can add. He had to share his power with his brothers. He had to share his power with his brothers. So initial period hai, by the way. So initially Afghans had rebelled in the region of Bihar, but Humayun was able to crush that rebellion. So Sher Khan promised him that he is not going to rebel, and he thought that he is going to follow that promise. But that did not, of course, that was a mistake. Later, when he was in Delhi, one of Humayun's brother, he was given the provincial authority of Agra region. He rebelled against Humayun. So Humayun had to go to Agra to crush that rebellion. Meanwhile, again Afghans rebelled. And then Sher Khan, by the way, who was silent for some time, but he was able to amass a large army, all of the Afghans. So when I use the word Afghan, it should be very clear I'm talking about many groups of people. All of them who have origin to many clans, who have origin to the region of Afghanistan. But nonetheless, these clans fought many battles among each other. But Sher Khan, because of his military tactics, because of his leadership skill, he was able to consolidate all of the Afghans under one banner. So all of the Afghan clans accepted his authority. And he was able to do that while Humayun was fighting off opposition from his brothers in Agra. So when the opportunity was right, then Sher Shah Suri, by the way, he became later Sher Shah Suri. Initially his name was Sher Khan, and again there is a very famous story because apparently he killed a tiger. Because of that, he was famously called Sher Khan. So now in Battle of Chausa, very famous battle, 1539, Humayun was defeated, and Humayun tried to reclaim his authority, but in 1540 again he was now comprehensively defeated, and because of that he had to flee away. There is a very interesting story about Humayun that he was actually saved by a cobbler, and to commemorate that victory, to commemorate that, he allowed that cobbler to become ruler for one day, and he allowed leather currency, a currency just made of leather. So again, I do not know how true that story is, but there is a very famous inscription which mentions this story about how he was saved by a cobbler. There is another story that why Akbar may have followed a policy of reconciliation towards Rajputs, and that may be then when Humayun was fleeing away, then Akbar was born in Rajputana states, and some of the Rajput chiefs actually took care of Humayun's wife and Akbar when he was very young. Of course, later they went to region of Afghanistan, they went to region of Punjab, which was ruled by Kamran. But even then Humayun was not very happy because he did not trust his brother completely. He always felt this fear that his wife and his son, very young son, minor son, they are going to be killed by his own brother. Nonetheless, that did not happen. However, the hostility between the Mughal faction which ruled the Punjab region and the Mughal faction which ruled Delhi, that hostility continued for many years, and it was only completely suppressed by Akbar in later period. So write down few things. In 1539, Battle of Chausa. In 1539, Battle of Chausa, Humayun was defeated by Sher Khan. Humayun was defeated by Sher Khan. who was leading the Afghan army? Who was leading the Afghan army? At the banks of river Karmnasa. At the banks of river Karmnasa. This is a river at the border of Bihar Bengal region. At the banks of river Karmnasa. In Battle of Kannauj 1540, in Battle of Kannauj 1540, Humayun was comprehensively defeated. Humayun was comprehensively defeated. And had to flee away. Had to flee away. Give the heading. Sher Shah Suri. Sher Shah Suri is again a very important character from medieval India. And why he's an important character? Because of the changes in administration he did. So let me briefly tell you about his origin. Sher Shah Suri, his father was a Jagirdar, and he had accepted Jagirdars were basically who have been given land assignment. If they are doing some service for Sultan, then they were given, many people were given land assignment, many nobles were given land assignment. This became, of course, properly institutionalized during time of Mughal. So we'll talk about Jagirdari in more detail in this topic itself, जो Mughal administration जब हम discuss करेंगे. But nonetheless, his father was a Jagirdar under Jaunpur kingdom. I'm going to talk about that during time of Sultanate itself. Jaunpur, which by the way is a city in Uttar Pradesh, how Jaunpur emerged as a very prosperous city and independent kingdom, and that remained independent for few decades in fact. It was later annexed by Behlul Lodi and Sikandar Lodi in around 1500. But nonetheless, for many decades, Jaunpur was an independent kingdom. And Sher Shah Suri, father, he was a Jagirdar of Jaunpur kingdom. But he did not have very good relationship with his father. Because of that, he was given this land assignment very far away from his home region, very far away from Jaunpur kingdom. So when his father died, especially the Jagirdari of Bihar Bengal region, that was inherited by Sher Shah Suri. So his original name was Farid, but very famously, again, do not know how that story is, how much story of that is true. He killed a tiger and he became Sher Khan. And later when he became ruler, he adopted the title of Shah and Sher Shah Suri, and that is called the second Afghan empire in Delhi. First is of course by Lodis, which I already have told you. Now Sher Shah Suri is a very interesting character because when he became ruler, he realized that the entire kingdom is suffering from lots of issues. The first and most significant issue was law and order. That law and order had completely deteriorated. There were many dacoits in the countryside region and he had to do something about it. So he gave the entire responsibility of law and order in the hand of local rulers. But with a proper caveat that if you are not able to fulfill law and order, then your hand will be chopped off. So you will suffer the consequences if you cannot maintain law and order. Now it may seem very harsh, but nonetheless it really worked, because contemporary historians write about him that the entire region around Delhi, all the roads, everything was completely freed of dacoits. Anybody could move anywhere without any fear of any type of attack. Second, Sher Shah Suri, because Sher Shah Suri had a very humble origin. He was not a ruler per se, he was not a royal, his father was a Jagirdar, but he was able to include all Afghan clans who were rallying behind him. So, and that was because of his military tactics, because of his leadership skills. So, and one of the reasons why he showed so much leadership skill, because he was, again we can say, a people of masses. He knew many problems firsthand. For example, many people who went to meet him They found a gardener doing some gardening work and they asked that where is emperor, and Sher Shah Suri says that I am the emperor. So a person who himself did lot of humble work, he had a humble origin. So because of that, he had problems. Firsthand, he knew the problem of peasants. So he realized what type of problems peasants are facing. So for example, he is the person who actually invested from Delhi into the proper demarcation of quality of land, that what type of land we are talking about, and based on that quality, we are going to collect this revenue. The same administrative reform was used by Akbar. So Akbar, of course, is credited with lot of administrative innovation, but frankly, most of those things Akbar inherited from Sher Shah Suri. Sher Shah Suri already had invested a lot into revenue administration. Another problem, he realized that trade is very important for economy. So first thing he did is that he invested a lot into road. Many roads were constructed. Most important is Grand Trunk Road, which connects the region of Punjab to Bengal, जो पूरा largest road of India at that point of time, and even today one of the largest continuous roads of India. That was constructed by Sher Shah Suri. He also knew that जो local chiefs हैं, they are causing a lot of problem for traders. So he made a proper royal proclamation that only two places you are going to collect taxes. One will be around Indus River in Punjab and another will be in the Bengal region. Apart from that, if anybody was found to any type of harassment for traders, they were given severe punishment. So trade also prospered. So despite the fact that Sher Shah Suri only ruled for 4 or 5 years, but he made significant changes into administration. And because of that, a lot of things improved in Delhi and adjoining areas. At one point of time, he emerged as the most powerful ruler of North India. Many other rulers, contemporary rulers, they accepted authority of Sher Shah Suri. तो जो पूरा region of Bihar है, that it's celebrated for many great kingdoms or many great leaders from the past. For example, Magadh Empire or Gupta Empire. But so is Sher Shah Suri, by the way. Sher Shah Suri, actually, he originally belonged to Sasaram region. There is a district in Bihar called Sasaram, and he belonged to Sasaram region, and from there he was able to establish what we call Sur Empire. But nonetheless, he died in 1545 in an accidental blast. There was a cannon, and that cannon had an accidental blast, and because of that, he died. His son, Islam Shah, became the next ruler, but he was not as competent, and he did not again enjoy the same level of respect. और जो अफगान्स का जो ये internal conflict है, वो शेर शाह सूरी was just able to subjugate that, but it was there. So because of this internal conflict, the Sur kingdom also declined. By 1555, the kingdom was very weak. Babur realized that this is the right opportunity. Sorry, Humayun realized that this is the right opportunity. He attacked and was able to recapture both Delhi and Agra back from Afghans. So, but he was not able to rule for very long. He died. He was coming from stairs and he fell from those stairs and he died. So overall, जो हुमायूं का life है, that was frankly quite miserable, despite the fact that he was son of Babur. But he faced a lot of problem even when he was ruler, and of course he faced a lot of problem when he was fleeing away. And finally, last 1 year of his life, when he had again recaptured everything, but he was not able to enjoy that for very long. So anyways, and after this, Akbar of course became ruler. So write down few things here about Sher Shah Suri. His original name was Farid. His original name was Farid. His father was a Jagirdar. His father was a Jagirdar. Jagirdar in Jaunpur kingdom. In Jaunpur kingdom. Very soon he emerged as the most powerful military commander in eastern provinces, and by 1540 1540, instituted the Second Afghan Empire in Delhi. By 1540, instituted Second Afghan Empire in Delhi. He died in an accidental blast. He died in an accidental blast of a gun. He died in an accidental blast of gun in 1545. In 1545, despite ruling for only 5 years, despite ruling for only 5 years, he made significant changes. He made significant changes in administration. In administration, for example, first, law and order. Right on. The kingdom was infested with dacoits. The kingdom was infested with dacoits. Dacoits. Sher Shah invested. Sher Shah invested in strengthening law and order situation. In strengthening law and order situation. And in few years, dacoity had significantly reduced. Dacoity had significantly reduced. Infrastructure. Many roads were constructed. Many roads were constructed, including Grand Trunk Road. Including Grand Trunk Road. Which connected Punjab to Bengal. Which connected Punjab to Bengal. After every few kilometers, write down. After every few kilometers, sarais were constructed on main roads. Sarais were constructed on main roads for resting place. For resting place, sarais were constructed on main roads for resting place. So people doing trade, or in general anyone who is roaming around, there was a place for them to stay. And all these sarais were under a chaukidar. Sarais were under chaukidar called Sehna. Sarais were under chaukidar called Sehna. Agriculture. Right on here. He knew the problems faced by peasants firsthand. He knew the problems faced by peasants firsthand. Problems faced by peasants firsthand. Land was divided. Land was divided in three categories. Good, bad, and middling. Good, bad, and middling. And land revenue was decided. Land revenue was decided based on its quality. Based on its quality. A proper land record was maintained. A proper land record was maintained, which was called patta. Which was called patta by an officer. By an officer named Patwari. By an officer named Patwari. अभी भी आप जाओगे नॉर्थ इंडिया में बहुत जगह आपको एक पटवारी मिल जाएंगे. सो जो लैंड रिकॉर्ड प्रॉपर मेजरमेंट है दैट वाज डन बाय पटवारी. Write down the next point. The branding of horses. The branding of horses used by Alauddin Khilji. Used by Alauddin Khilji was also used by Sher Shah Suri. The branding of horses, I told you this, Dag system. The branding of horses used by Alauddin Khilji was also used by Sher Shah Suri. Few things should be very clear. He was a जजिया कंटिन्यूड आप लिख सकते हो. जजिया कंटिन्यूड. He had started fortification around Delhi. He had started fortification around Delhi. Fortification around Delhi. Does anyone know which fort I'm talking about? Siri Fort was constructed by Alauddin Khilji. Purana Kila. जो पुराना किला है, he started fortification of Delhi, known as Purana Kila. However, at the same time, I must tell you that this fortification may have started because an infrastructure already existed here. And this infrastructure may have belonged to Mauryan period. जैसे Archaeological Survey of India has done excavation of Purana Kila, which was initially mentioned that it was constructed first by Sher Shah Suri, later by Humayun. Humayun made more construction, but it was done by Sher Shah Suri. But now excavation has proven that there are artifacts belonging to Mauryan period in Purana Kila. Recently, I just came across news that Archaeological Survey of India has been given another go-ahead that जो next phase of excavation बहुत जगह पे होने वाले और एक जगह जो होगा वो पुराना किला पे होगा. So Government of India wants more excavation to ascertain more about this structure called Purana Kila, right? Not very far away from here. One of my favorite places in Delhi, by the way. Malik Muhammad Jaisi, write down. Malik Muhammad Jaisi was patronized by him. Patronized by him. Very famous for his work, Padmavat. Very famous for his work, Padmavat. एक आप लाइन ऐड कर सकते हो. Many of the administrative innovations many of the administrative innovations of Sher Shah Suri, many of the administrative innovations of Sher Shah Suri were used by Akbar. So anyways, that is the next topic. Give this heading. Now Akbar ruled for about 50 years, 1556 to 1605. There is a question that why Bahmani kingdom and Vijayanagar fought for Konkan strip region. Again, because boundary, एक तो border, जो border है, border was not very well defined and there was a contest for supremacy. So anyways, Akbar ruled for 50 years. However, जो first 4 years है, he was not the direct ruler. He was a minor at this point of time. And the actual rule went to regent ruler named Bairam Khan. So 1556 to 1560 वाला जो period है, he was a minor. He was 12 years old. Only when he became 16 years old, then he was given, when he became emperor. So Bairam Khan was actually the ruler. And Bairam Khan, he was, by the way, faithful to the entire Mughal dynasty, without any doubt. Bairam Khan was one of the nobles. So when Humayun died, the immediate problem which Mughals faced is the Afghan hostility. That even though Sur kingdom had ended, and even though आप in fact एक line शायद आप add कर सकते थे पहले वाले topic में, before Akbar एक line just आप add कर सकते हो. After death of Sher Shah Suri, his son Islam Shah became ruler. Islam Shah became ruler. However, the kingdom gradually declined. And Humayun was able to recover Agra and Delhi by 1555. So very first thing, अकबर के बारे में जब हम सबसे पहले पढ़ते हैं, we read about second battle of Panipat. The second battle of Panipat happened in 1556, but frankly it was not led by Akbar, it was led by Bairam Khan. Bairam Khan was the regent ruler at this point of time. And second battle of Panipat was fought between the army of Akbar and army of Hemu. Now who is exactly Hemu? That is also very interesting. That Afghans had lot of hostility. But nonetheless, one of the prime minister of Afghan ruler, his name was Hemchandra. And Hemu originally may have belonged to perhaps the region of Rajasthan, but later he was employed by Afghan ruler in Bengal. And he proved to be quite an efficient ruler. So despite the fact that again Afghans had a lot of hostility, but he was able to rally all of the Afghans under his banner. After defeating Mughals initially in few battles, he took the title of Hemchandra Vikramaditya. So Hemu was actually a Hindu, but he was leading the Afghan army. And he was actually able to easily recover Agra also. He defeated Mughal army quite easily in Agra. And then in second battle of Panipat, that was to recover Delhi, which happened between the army led by Bairam Khan and Hemu. And contemporary historians write that he was actually on the verge of victory. That Afghan army may have defeated Mughal army. But at the same time, there was an arrow which struck one of the eyes of Hemu. Because of that, he got injured and his army became leaderless. That led to a lot of chaos, and that chaos was utilized very effectively by Mughals, and Hemu was captured and he was beheaded. So Bairam Khan, of course, was celebrated for this victory, but that also made him arrogant. He started behaving superior compared to other nobles, and other nobles did not like it. So when Akbar came of age and he became properly instituted as emperor in 1560, Then he realized that there cannot be two centers of power. Bairam Khan had accumulated a lot of power for himself. So he gave a royal proclamation that he is going to be removed from his position of Wazir. By the way, he had the power of Wazir, and Wazir was, as I told you, he was very powerful during time of Delhi Sultanate also, and very powerful during time of Mughals also. But Bairam Khan did not like it. He rebelled against Akbar. This rebellion was very easily crushed also. However, Akbar did not actually send him to prison, did not kill him also. He asked him that you should go to Hajj. You are quite old and you should fulfill your duty of a good Muslim and you should go to Hajj. And his family, however, was called to Delhi and his family was given important position. Same position. In fact, his son Rahim became one of the most important nobles in the court of Akbar, one of the Nauratnas also. Very popularly known for all the dohas of Rahim, agar aapne Hindi padha, right? So his full name was Abdur Rahim Khane Khana, but Khane Khana was the title given to Bairam Khan, that even among all the Khans, Bairam Khan is the most important one. So the same title was also given to him. He was also given very high position in the administration of Akbar, and he in fact became one of the Nauratnas of Akbar. But nonetheless, Bairam Khan, while he was going towards Hajj, he was attacked by a group of Afghans in the region of Gujarat and he was killed there. And Akbar, in the meantime, in Delhi, Akbar had taken away the financial power from Wazir. He realized that this power of Wazir is very important. And one of the reasons this is such an important position is that they have financial power. So he took away the financial power and created entirely another department which handled with the financial matter. But nonetheless, we'll talk about the administrative part once we complete the political history part. Now, immediate challenge which Akbar faced was that there are many independent kingdoms at this point of time. And these independent kingdoms, for example, Afghans still were powerful in the region of Bihar and Bengal. Gujarat was an independent kingdom. Jo Sindh region hai, this was independent here. Kashmir was independent here, right? Some Rajput kingdoms did not accept the authority of Mughals. So he faced a lot of rebellion. Of course, you have जो पूरा Deccan Sultan है वो तो है ही है. So you have Deccan Sultan, all of this Sultanate which we talked about. Add one more name here called Khandes. So along with Khandes, you have Bijapur, you have Ahmednagar, and you have Golconda. So all of these are independent kingdoms. Now Akbar's immediate job was to defeat the neighboring kingdoms and annex all that territory under Mughal kingdom. For that, he adopted a policy of dual policy. He adopted policy of diplomacy, and wherever diplomacy did not work, he also adopted the policy of military march. So, for example, in his first few battles he fought, that was a battle against Malwa, king of Malwa. Malwa at this point of time, by the way, Malwa was also independent kingdom. So, Malwa was ruled by a ruler called Baz Bahadur. Baz Bahadur was defeated and he was given high mansab into his court. Akbar followed a policy of reconciliation towards Rajput rulers. He demanded that you have to accept authority of the Mughal emperor. If you do that, then you will be also given higher positions into his court. Many Rajput rulers accepted this and he actually fulfilled his promise, so that became an example for many other Rajput rulers. So many followed the suit. He also entered into matrimonial alliances. For example, his favorite wife was Jodha Bai, although she is popularly known as Jodha Bai. Her original name was Harka Bai. And Harka Bai was daughter of one of the Rajput chief. So, and all of those examples it basically showed that other Rajput rulers also accepted Akbar's authority, except Maharana Pratap. Now, Maharana Pratap was grandson of Maharana Sangram Singh. Rana Sanga, who had fought battle against Babur, Maharana Pratap belonged to the same clan and he was grandson of Rana Sanga. And he did not accept the authority of Akbar. So, for example, one of the condition Akbar had presented to all the Rajput rulers, that you have to personally come to his court and you have to accept the authority of ruler. So Maharana Pratap did not like it. He sent his son, he said that I am not going to come to Delhi. So that increased more and more hostility. But even within, by the way, यहाँ पे भी फिर एक बड़ा एक interesting part ये भी है that his own Maharana Pratap, his own brother, by the way, he thought that he is going to become the ruler of Mewar. But Maharana Pratap became the ruler and he did not like it. So he also may have given covert support to Mughal army. But nonetheless, a very famous battle called Battle of Haldi Ghati that happened in 1576. And in this battle, the army was led by Raja Man Singh. Akbar army was led by Raja Man Singh, who was a military commander of Akbar. And the army of Mewar was led by Maharana Pratap. This battle went on for some time, but finally Maharana Pratap had to recede, and he then for rest of his life he adopted guerrilla warfare tactics against the Mughal army. So he created a lot of problem for Mughal army throughout his life. He was never captured as such, and Akbar, despite defeating the army, he actually faced a lot of difficulty in capturing the fort. But nonetheless, that was another victory. Another victory was in Bundelkhand region, which was ruled by a queen called Durgavati. And Durgavati faced a lot of, again, this is also why this is important, because a queen faced Akbar's army. But this region was also annexed. Later, Gujarat was also annexed, Kashmir was also annexed, and Afghans were completely defeated, completely overwhelmed, and Bihar and Bengal region was also annexed. So by 1580, 1590, in fact 1591, the Kashmir was also annexed. So now Akbar had established his authority throughout North India, and now he wanted to focus in the Deccan region. He wanted to consolidate especially his position in the Bijapur region. Now at this point of time, there is a very important ruler here in the Deccan called Chand Bibi. Now Chand Bibi decided to fight with Akbar, but her army was defeated and she had to cede a lot of her territory. But later she was supported by other Deccan sultans and she was able to recapture the lost territory. That is why she is also part of very popular imagination, that the queen who was able to check the power of Akbar. So when Akbar died in 1605, जो मुगल का पोजीशन इन डेक्कन है, even though he had initial success, but those initial success were again thwarted and he was not able to do anything. So when Jahangir became ruler, the next ruler was Jahangir, and Shah Jahan, they were not able to do that much into Deccan region. Shah Jahan had some success, especially in the Bijapur region, but nonetheless they were not able to do a lot. It was actually Aurangzeb who led the final expansion of Mughal Empire. We will talk about that. But give this heading, Akbar, and write down few things here. The first 4 years was regency of Baram Khan, who led the Mughal army in a victorious campaign against Hemu, who was leading Afghan army. At the Second Battle of Panipat. Baram Khan became arrogant. And when Akbar came of age, he removed Baram Khan from his position. Baram Khan rebelled, but his rebellion was crushed. and he was pardoned. He was pardoned. His son Rahim, write down. His son Rahim went on to become an important noble in the court of Akbar. Important noble in the court of Akbar. Rahim was also given the title of his father, Khane Khana. Rahim was also given the title of his father, Khane Khana. So his full name was Abdul Rahim Khane Khana. Very popular for his poetry, his dohas. Right down here. In 1562, Akbar defeated Baz Bahadur, ruler of Malwa. Baz Bahadur, ruler of Malwa. In 1564, he annexed Gondwana. An independent state in central India. Ruled by Rani Durgavati. Next, he entered into matrimonial alliances with Rajput rulers. For example, Harkha Bai, popularly known as Jodha Bai. Harkha Bai was daughter of Raja Bharmal of Ambir. Right on. In 1573, Akbar captured Gujarat from Muzaffar Shah. Write down the next point. One of the Rajput rulers, Maharana Pratap, आप ब्रैकेट में लिख सकते हो, ग्रैंडसन ऑफ राणा संगा. Maharana Pratap of Mewar did not accept authority of Akbar. In 1576 Battle of Haldi Ghati, in 1576 Battle of Haldi Ghati, Mughal army led by Raja Man Singh Mughal army led by Raja Man Singh was able to defeat Maharana Pratap Maharana Pratap many other Rajput kingdoms such as Ranthambore, Bikaner, Jaisalmer accepted the authority of Akbar. Next, Gujarat, Bihar, Bengal. Sorry, Gujarat we already have talked about. Bihar and Bengal were captured from Afghans. And by 1591, he also annexed region of Sindh and Kashmir. In 1595, write down next bullet point. In 1595, Mughal forces invaded Ahmednagar, which was ruled by Chand Bibi. She had to cede significant territory to Mughals. However, with help of other Deccan Sultans, she was able to recover the lost territory. In terms of territorial expansion, write down. In terms of territorial expansion, little was added to the empire. After Akbar. It was Aurangzeb who annexed Deccan kingdoms into Mughal Empire. Next class we'll talk about some important developments which happened during the reign of Jahangir, Shah Jahan and Aurangzeb. But apart from political development, जो important topic हमारे exam के लिए होगा वो मुगल administration होगा. We will discuss in detail about Mughal administrative setup. We will talk about Mansabdari system. We'll try to compare that with Iqtidari system. And then we will also discuss as last topic of our medieval India, that will be the other regional kingdoms and some important names from those regional kingdoms and uh, their important contribution to long lasting contribution to history of India. So if we exceed our next class time by I think half an hour or 45 minutes, we'll be able to complete medieval history. So I do not want to take one more class for just to complete, because this is only last topic, जो important topic जो रहता है आपका मुगल administration है, तो एक class हम और करेंगे and we will try to complete everything in the next class.